48 Hours. Act 1. The Perfect Life. My name is Sarah Mackenzie. I'm 34 years old, and in exactly 48 hours, I'm going to marry the man I've loved since I was 23. His name is Michael Chen. He's a pediatric surgeon. We met at a hospital benefit dinner where I was working as an event coordinator. He was charming and brilliant, and completely out of my league, which is probably why I believed him when he said he'd fallen in love with me the moment our eyes met across the ballroom. That was 11 years ago. We've built a good life together. A beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn that we renovated over 2 years. Learning how to use a power drill and arguing about paint colors at 3 in the morning. A golden retriever named Gatsby, who's been with us since year 3 and has destroyed exactly 3 couches and 1 wedding veil. A preview, apparently, of what my wedding day would bring. Vacations in Tuscany, where we got drunk on Prosecco and made love in a villa overlooking vineyards, while the owners watched us from across the property. Costa Rica, where we hiked through rainforests, and I realized I'd marry this man in any timeline, any universe, any version of reality. My parents love him. They love him the way parents love sons-in-law who are successful and kind and likely to give them grandchildren. His parents, after an initial period of adjustment to the fact that he wasn't marrying a nice Chinese girl from a pre-screened family network, have welcomed me into their family with genuine warmth. My mother actually cried when Michael proposed, which was ridiculous because we'd been living together for 5 years already. But she cried anyway, the way mothers do when their daughters reach a milestone that suggests they've become adults capable of making their own decisions. Everything has been exactly as it should be. The wedding is tomorrow. Not today. Tomorrow. But everyone keeps saying tomorrow now, as if it's already arrived. As if this final day before the event is somehow already part of history rather than something still in the future. I'm at my mother's house in Westchester, where we're getting ready. My bridesmaids, my sister Catherine, my college roommate Jessica, and Michael's sister Jennifer are helping me dress. My wedding dress hangs in the corner like a ghost, waiting to be inhabited. Custom Vera Wang, $12,000. I know exactly what I spent because I sent my mother the receipt and she fainted slightly before recovering and telling me it was a beautiful dress and worth every penny. Though I could tell she was doing the mental math about what other things $12,000 could buy. A car, a semester of grad school, 6 months of therapy, which, as it turns out, I was going to need. The dress is beautiful. It's ivory silk with hand-stitched beading on the bodice and a train that drags 12 feet behind me. It's the kind of dress you see in magazines. The kind of dress that makes you look like you finally become the woman you're supposed to be. Or at least the woman you've been pretending to be. You're quiet, Catherine says. She's my older sister by 3 years, and we've never had much in common. She's a corporate lawyer, all sharp edges and professional distance. I've always been the softer one, emotional, empathetic, the one who cries at movies and texts, people unsolicited messages about their feelings. Catherine is the kind of woman who makes partner at her firm by age 38, and then realizes she never learned how to have a conversation with her own sister that doesn't revolve around logistics and disappointment. Just nervous, I say. That's normal. Jessica squeezes my hand. She's been my best friend since sophomore year of college. We lived together for 3 years after graduation, shared a bathroom, borrowed each other's clothes, cried in each other's arms over men who didn't deserve us. She knows me better than anyone except Michael. She knows that I organize events for a living, which sounds simpler than it is. It's actually about managing chaos, reading people, understanding what they need before they know they need it. She also knows that I tend to avoid difficult conversations by smiling and asking other people about themselves. Cold feet? Not about Michael, about everything, the ceremony. 200 people watching, my father giving me away like I'm property being transferred from one man to another. It's all very patriarchal when you think about it. Very 18th century. And the speeches. Have you heard Michael's best man's speech? He's been working on it for months, and I'm terrified it's going to be a disaster. Then why are you doing it? Jennifer asks. She means well, but there's always been a slight edge to her. Michael's family is progressive, educated, wealthy. They think wedding traditions are quaint relics best indulged but not truly believed in. Jennifer got married at City Hall 4 years ago to a woman named Patricia, and it was perfect and intimate and completely free of the pageantry that I'm about to undergo. Sometimes I think she judges me for wanting the pageantry, for believing in the fairy tale, for being the kind of woman who dreams about a white dress and a big wedding. Because Michael wants it, I say. Because when he proposed, he specifically asked if I'd want a big wedding with my family and his family. Because I want my father to walk me down the aisle even though it's problematic. Because some traditions exist for good reasons, even if those reasons are buried under centuries of patriarchal bullshit. My mother appears in the doorway holding my phone. She looks nervous. Actually nervous. Her mouth is tight in that particular way that means she's been holding something back for so long that the pressure of it is physically painful. This is the face she made when she told me that my grandfather was dying. This is the face she made when she told me my parents were going to marriage counseling. This is the face of a woman who is about to deliver bad news and doesn't know how to do it. Sarah, honey, it's your father. He wants to talk to you. I take the phone, expecting him to ask about timing or logistics or something paternal and protective. My father is a good man, an accountant by trade, methodical, kind in the way that people are when they've spent decades following rules and assuming those rules exist for good reasons. He's spent 40 years managing other people's finances, balancing books, finding the mathematical truth underneath the accounting. He's the kind of man who believes in precision and honesty and doing things the right way. Or at least, he's that man on the surface. Pumpkin, he says. He still calls me that even though I'm 34 years old, despite the fact that I'm literally a woman in a wedding dress, about to get married in less than 24 hours. How are you feeling? Good, nervous, ready. Dad, is everything okay? You sound weird. Silence. Too much silence. In the background, I can hear my mother's voice, urgent and distant. She's saying something to him. He's not responding. She's saying it again. And I realize he's not responding because he doesn't want to respond. He's gathering courage like a man about to jump off a cliff, like a man about to ruin his daughter's life. Dad? Your mother and I, we need to tell you something before the wedding, before you go through with this, before you say words in front of 200 people that you might not want to say, before you marry him. My stomach tightens. Physically tightens. I feel it like a hand clenching inside my body, squeezing my organs, stealing my breath. What? What's wrong? It's about Michael, about his family, about something we should have told you years ago, but we were scared. And then it became a habit to not say it, And now the wedding is tomorrow, and you need to know. You need to know who you're actually marrying. Dad, you're scaring me. Is Michael okay? Is he sick? Did he cheat on me? Michael is fine. Michael is wonderful. It's his father. Michael's father. His father is not who you've been told he is. What do you mean? His name isn't Richard Chen. That's the name he's been using. But it's not his real name. His birth name was Richard Ashton. He changed his identity in 1989 because he was involved in a hit-and-run accident in Toronto. A woman was killed. He was driving drunk. He left the scene. The room starts to spin. I sit down heavily on the edge of my bed. My wedding dress rustles beneath me like it's alive, like it's disappointed. Dad, what are you talking about? The woman who was killed in the hit-and-run was pregnant. She was carrying his child, his daughter. She died in the accident, but the baby was delivered by emergency C-section. She was premature. She lived for 3 days in the NICU, and then she died. Richard's daughter. He never met her. I'm trying to understand the words, but they're not translating into anything coherent. I'm trying to understand how my father, the man who has spent 40 years telling me about ethics and integrity and doing the right thing, could have helped a man cover up a hit-and-run that killed a pregnant woman. There's more, my father says, and I understand that we've only reached the surface of something much darker. Like looking at an iceberg and realizing the part above water is just the tip. The woman who was carrying Richard's daughter was his ex-girlfriend. They'd broken up months before the accident. She was pregnant, and he didn't know. Or maybe he did know and didn't care. Either way, she was 8 months along when he hit her with his car. Jesus Christ, I whisper. Her name was Elena Kozlov. She was 24 years old. She was a violinist. She was supposed to go to Juilliard in the fall. She had parents who lived in Montreal. They tried to sue Richard. They wanted justice. But Richard had disappeared. He'd become Richard Chen. He'd built a new identity. And I helped him do it. I look at my bridesmaids. They're all staring at me with expressions of confusion and concern. They don't know that their friend's entire world is collapsing in real time. You helped him hide this? I ask. You've known for how long? Since 1989, for 35 years. Your mother and I have been carrying this secret for your entire life. I tell my bridesmaids to give me privacy. They leave reluctantly, Jessica grabbing my hand and squeezing it, like she's trying to transmit strength through her fingers. My mother appears with water and tissues, and I want to scream at her for her complicity, for her silence, for making her daughter's wedding day the day of reckoning. My father arrives 2 hours later with my mother. They look like people who haven't slept in days, though they haven't. They just look like people carrying something impossibly heavy. My father's hair has gone completely gray since I last saw him 3 weeks ago. Or maybe it's been gray forever and I just never noticed. I don't know where to start, my father says. Start with why you're here instead of letting me get married tomorrow, I tell him. I'm standing, not sitting, keeping my body ready for flight. Start with why you would do this. Start with how you could look me in the eye for 34 years and lie about who Michael's father is. My mother sits on my bed. She looks smaller than she did 48 hours ago. She looks like a woman who has realized that the choices she made 35 years ago are still rippling forward, still destroying things, still ruining people. She looks like she's aged 10 years in 2 days. Michael's father came to us in 1989, my father says slowly. He was desperate. He'd hit a woman with his car. He left the scene. He was going to be charged, but he panicked and he ran. He came to us asking if we could help him disappear. And you said yes. I said yes. I was younger then, and Richard was my friend from college, and I believed in second chances. I believed that people deserve to reinvent themselves. I was an idiot. You were complicit in covering up a hit-and-run that killed a pregnant woman, I say. My voice is very quiet, which somehow makes it worse. You weren't just an idiot, you were a criminal. You helped a criminal evade justice, and you've been lying about it for my entire life. I know, my father says, and his face is paper white. I've never seen my father this white before. I've never seen him this terrified. I know what I did. I've regretted it every single day. But I was trying to protect you, Sarah. I didn't want you to inherit my sins. I didn't want you to carry the weight of what Richard did. That's not protection, Dad. That's manipulation. You made a choice for me. You made a choice about what information I could handle, what I had a right to know about the man I was about to marry. You've been lying about it for 34 years, and now you're telling me the day before my wedding because your conscience is finally giving way under the weight of your guilt. My mother speaks up. We were young, we were stupid. We thought we were helping someone who deserved a second chance. Elena Kozlov didn't get a second chance. Her daughter didn't get a first chance. They got death because your best friend was drunk and selfish. My father flinches. I watch him flinch and I realize that this is the moment he's been dreading. This is the moment where his daughter, the person he's been trying to protect by lying, looks at him with disappointment and disgust. Michael doesn't know, my mother says quietly. Richard never told him. I stand, I pace. I feel anger rising in me like a tide, drowning out every other emotion. Michael needs to know, before I marry him, before I promise to spend my life with him, before I have children with him and they inherit this lie. If you tell him, you'll destroy his family, my father says. You'll destroy the life he's built. His family should be destroyed. His family is built on a lie. His father is a criminal who killed a woman and ran away. And everyone who knew about it, everyone who helped him disappear, is also complicit. I pull out my phone and call Michael. He answers on the second ring. His voice is bright. He's happy. He's excited about tomorrow. He has no idea what's about to happen. Hey, beautiful. How's the wedding prep going? My mom's been texting me updates every 30 seconds. She's asking if you've eaten lunch because... Michael, we need to talk right now. Can you get to your apartment? Sarah, what's wrong? Are you canceling the wedding? I need to talk to you about something that will change everything. I'm on my way, he says, and the fear in his voice is heartbreaking. Act 2, The Truth Uncovered. Michael's apartment in Manhattan is exactly as it always is, clean, organized, decorated with the kind of intentionality that shows he actually thinks about his living space. There are bookshelves filled with medical journals and literary fiction. There are photographs of his family. There's a wall of photos from our relationship, us at the beach, us in Tuscany, us at his hospital's holiday party, where he'd snuck off to kiss me behind the mistletoe. Michael is waiting when I arrive. He's changed out of his work clothes into jeans and a sweater. He's made coffee. He's trying to act normal, but I can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers keep moving to his hair and back down again. He's nervous in a way I've rarely seen him. He looks like a man who knows something terrible is coming, but doesn't know exactly what shape it will take. Okay, he says, talk to me. What's going on? You're scaring me. I sit down on his couch. I've sat on this couch hundreds of times. I've fallen asleep here. I've made love here. I've dreamed about our future sitting on this couch. I've imagined us sitting here 30 years from now, gray and content, watching our children and our grandchildren play in front of us. But I've never sat here carrying information this heavy, this destructive. My father called me today, before the wedding. He told me something about your family that he's known for 35 years. What? What did he know? Michael sits down next to me, but not touching, like he's already bracing himself for impact. Your father. Michael's father. His name isn't Richard Chen. Michael stares at me. What are you talking about? His birth name was Richard Ashton. He changed his identity in 1989 because he was involved in a hit-and-run accident in Toronto. A woman was killed. He was driving drunk. He left the scene. He didn't call an ambulance. He didn't try to help her. He just drove away. Michael doesn't say anything. He just sits there, processing words that seem to have come from another language. The woman was pregnant, I continue, because stopping now would be worse than continuing. She was carrying your father's daughter. She died in the accident. The baby was delivered but didn't survive. Jesus Christ, Michael says. It comes out as a whisper, but it echoes in the apartment like a scream. And my father helped him disappear. He helped him change his identity. They've known each other since college. My father's the reason your father was able to become Richard Chen. Michael stands. He walks to the window. It's raining outside, the kind of rain that feels apocalyptic. The kind of rain that makes the world look like it's drowning. My father killed someone, he says. It's not a question. Yes. And he just changed his identity and moved on? With my father's help, yes. Jesus Christ. He leans his forehead against the window, and I can see him making a sound that might be a laugh or might be the beginning of something breaking inside him. And you knew this? Your family knew, and they didn't tell me? They knew. They've known since before I was born. They were trying to protect me. Protect both of us, I think. They thought if you didn't know, then Michael Chen could just be Michael Chen, without the shadow of his father's crimes. That's not how this works, Michael says, and his voice has gone very quiet, which is somehow worse than if he were yelling. That's not how truth works. You don't get to erase your past because you change your name. You don't get to run away and pretend to be someone else. No, you don't. And my father, he spent my entire life preaching about ethics and integrity and doing the right thing. He's a pediatric surgeon, Sarah. He saves children's lives. And all the while, he's been living a lie. He's been hiding the fact that he killed a woman and abandoned his own daughter. And everyone knew. Everyone knew except me. Your half-sister, I tell him gently. Your father has been talking to her for 3 weeks. She found him through a DNA testing company. Michael turns to face me. His face is pale. His eyes are very dark. They're the eyes of someone whose entire understanding of the world has just shifted. Does my mother know? I don't think so. Your father was planning to tell you after the wedding. He wanted to tell you in person. He wanted to get through the wedding first. After the wedding? Michael laughs, a hollow sound that echoes off the walls of his beautiful apartment. Because the most important thing is that his social calendar doesn't get disrupted. 200 people showing up to celebrate the merger of two families. And one of those families is built on a decades-old lie. Michael, how long were you going to let me walk around not knowing this? If your father hadn't told you, would you have gone through with the wedding without telling me? I don't know. I just got this information today. I came straight here. That's not actually a no, though, is it? It's an I don't know. Which means there's a version of this where you marry me and I find out about my father's crimes from someone else. Maybe my newly discovered half-sister. Maybe a journalist investigating a cold case. Maybe at a dinner party 10 years from now when someone brings up a news story about unsolved hit-and-runs and my father's face goes pale and I suddenly have to figure out that my entire childhood was built on a lie. I don't have an answer because he's right. I was getting ready to marry him without knowing if I would have told him. I was going to walk down the aisle in my $12,000 dress and say I do in front of 200 people while carrying a secret that wasn't mine to carry. I was going to promise honesty to someone while standing on a foundation of lies. What do you want to do? I ask. I want to call my father and tell him that the wedding is off until he explains himself. I want him to tell me about the woman he killed and the daughter he abandoned. I want to understand why he chose to be a coward instead of a man. I want to understand how he could stand in my hospital office last month and congratulate me on becoming chief resident and act like he was proud of me when he's been lying about who he is his entire life. And us? The wedding? I don't know, Sarah. I don't know anything right now except that I apparently don't know my own father. And if I don't know my own father, how can I know anything? Axt 3, The Reckoning. Michael calls his father at 11:47 p.m., exactly 45 minutes before tomorrow technically becomes today. It's both the worst and best possible time. Too late for careful composure, too early for sleep, too dark for hope, too light for despair. Dad, we need to talk right now, in person, at my apartment. And I need you to tell me everything. The truth. No more lies. No more hiding. Everything. Richard arrives 45 minutes later, looking like a man who's been waiting for the other shoe to drop since 1989 and has just heard it hitting the ground. He's still in his work clothes, expensive suit, silk tie, the uniform of a successful man. But underneath that uniform, he looks diminished. He looks like someone who's been carrying a weight that's finally become too heavy. He's aged 10 years in the last hour. He sees me and his face does something complicated. Sarah told you, he says. Not a question. Sarah's father told her, and she told me. Michael says coldly. Which raises the interesting question of why my fiancé's family knew about my father's crimes before I did. Why they let me grow up without knowing who I actually was. Why they let me become a doctor and tell people about ethics and integrity when the entire foundation of my identity is built on a lie. Richard sits down heavily. His hands are shaking. I watch him try to hide it by clasping them together, but the shaking just moves up to his arms. I was going to tell you, he says. When? Michael demands. After the wedding? Next year? When I had kids of my own? When was I supposed to find out that my father killed a pregnant woman and just drove away? I was going to tell you after the wedding. I don't care what you wanted, Michael interrupts. He's standing now, pacing, his anger filling the apartment like a physical force. I care about what happened. I care about the woman you killed. I care about the daughter you abandoned. I care about the baby that died because you were drunk and selfish and cowardly. I want to hear it all, and I want to hear it now. And I want to hear why my fiancé's father helped you cover it up. Richard doesn't speak for what feels like a very long time. I can see him making a calculation, figuring out which story to tell, which version of events might preserve some small part of his relationship with his son. Then he seems to give up, The calculation falls away. He just starts talking, and his voice sounds hollow, like it's coming from a man who's already dead but hasn't admitted it yet. I was 25 years old, he says. I was already in medical school. I had my future all planned out. I was going to be a surgeon. I was going to have a good life. I was going to be someone. And one night, I got drunk at a bar and made a stupid decision to drive home. He stops. He can't seem to continue. Keep going, Michael says. I hit a woman at a crosswalk. She was on a bicycle. She was 8 months pregnant. Her name was Elena. I knew immediately that I'd hit her hard. I knew that something terrible had happened. But I panicked. I didn't think. I just drove away. You left her, Michael says. His voice is shaking. You left her at the side of the road. Yes, I left her at the side of the road. She died before the ambulance arrived. The baby was delivered by emergency C-section. They tried to save her, but she was too premature. She didn't make it. Michael is very still. I'm watching him try to process this information. That his father is not the man he thought he was. That the man he's respected his entire life, the man he's looked up to, the man he's tried to emulate, chose to run away from the consequences of his actions. Why, Michael asks. Why didn't you turn yourself in? Because I was a coward. Because I thought about my future, my medical school acceptance, my dreams, and I decided that my future was worth more than that woman's death. I decided that I was important enough to warrant a second chance, and that she wasn't. Richard looks directly at Michael. I can see that he's crying, though he's trying to hide it. His jaw is clenching. His eyes are very red. I went to the police station that night. I sat in the parking lot for an hour. I was going to confess. I was going to turn myself in. I was going to face what I'd done. But then I started the car and I drove away. And I kept driving. I drove to Boston. I changed my name. I built a new identity. And I've been running from that moment for 35 years. Did you ever try to help her family? Michael asks. Did you ever send money? Did you ever try to make it right? No, I was too afraid. I was too selfish. I was too busy building my life to think about the life I'd taken. You built your life on a grave, Michael says quietly. You built your medical career on the body of a woman who should have been alive, and you let her family suffer. You let her daughter die without ever knowing her father. And you let me grow up thinking I came from a line of ethical, honorable people. Richard stands. He reaches for Michael, and Michael pulls away from him like he's been burned. Don't touch me, Michael says. Don't. I can't. I need you to leave. I need you to go somewhere that isn't here. I need to not look at you right now because I'm afraid of what I'll do. Michael, I said leave, Michael's voice cracks. Leave now or I'll throw you out the window. Richard leaves. He walks out of the apartment like a man in a trance. Michael stands at the window and watches his father disappear into the rain-soaked Manhattan night. I don't know what to say. There are no words adequate to this moment. I'm going to call my mother, Michael says finally. I'm going to tell her everything, and then I'm going to turn myself in. What? I stand. You didn't do anything. You're not responsible for your father's crimes. I know, but I've spent my life as Richard Chen, Michael Chen. I've benefited from his lies. I've had opportunities because of his stolen identity. I've lived in his shadow and I didn't even know it. So yes, I'm going to turn myself in as a witness. I'm going to cooperate with any investigation. And I'm going to help his victim's family get justice. Act 4. The Wedding That Doesn't Happen. The wedding cancellation becomes public at 7:45 a.m., less than 8 hours before it was supposed to start. My wedding planner, an expensive woman named Vivienne who has been coordinating this event for 9 months, gets the call while she's having her coffee at the venue, checking on flowers and linens. "Is everyone okay?" she asks immediately, which is kind of her. She's a professional who's seen weddings canceled before, but she still cares about the people involved. "No," I tell her. "We're all not okay and we're going to postpone the wedding indefinitely." "I know this is short notice. I'm so sorry." "We'll figure it out," she says, and I can hear her already mentally reorganizing a cascade of vendor calls and rescheduling. She's a professional. She'll manage. But the word "figure it out" seems impossible when everything has fallen apart. "But Sarah, people need to know. 200 people. "I know. We're calling people now." My phone starts ringing at 8:15 a.m. My mother. She's seen the cancellation email that I sent out with the vague excuse about family circumstances. "Your father's not speaking to me," she says without preamble. "He's moved into the guest house. He says he feels like a hypocrite." Which he is, which is something I've apparently known forever, and he's just now coming to terms with. He says that helping Richard was the biggest mistake of his life, but that telling you about it was the second biggest. "Mom, I had to tell Michael. You know that." "I know, and it's the right thing to do. It's just very expensive to do the right thing sometimes." Michael's mother found out. Richard told her everything about an hour ago. She's devastated. She's talking about divorce. Michael's sister is furious. The whole family is imploding. Everything is falling apart. I think about this, about how one decision, my decision to tell the truth, has created a domino effect of destruction. Michael's mother is devastated. His sister is furious. His father is probably sitting in a hotel room somewhere realizing that his entire life has come crashing down around him. The woman he loved for 30 years is leaving him. But that's the consequence of building your life on a lie, isn't it? Eventually, the truth comes out and everything collapses. "I'm sorry, Mom." "Don't apologize to me. I'm not the victim here. The victim is Elena Kozlov, who's been dead for 35 years because your father's best friend was a coward. And the victim is my husband, who's been carrying this guilt for 3 decades. And the victim is Michael, who's just found out that his entire identity is built on a crime." She hangs up. By noon, the story is making the rounds among New York's social circles. Not the full story, that will take longer to spread, but the essential truth. Michael's father is involved in something terrible. The wedding is a scandal. Everyone knows except Michael, who's apparently been blindsided. By 2:00 p.m., a journalist from the New York Post calls asking if I'd like to comment. "We have information that Dr. Richard Chen of New York Presbyterian Hospital was involved in a hit-and-run accident in Toronto in 1988, the journalist says. "We have found documentation of an Elena Kozlov, age 24, who died in a hit-and-run accident in Toronto on October 15, 1988. We have also found her parents' statement indicating that the man responsible fled the scene. We're running a story. We wanted to give you a chance to comment." I hang up and call my lawyer. By that evening, there's a press release from Michael's hospital that says absolutely nothing. Dr. Michael Chen is cooperating fully with authorities investigating a matter related to his father. The hospital is committed to maintaining the highest standards of professional ethics. But the press doesn't care about careful statements. The press cares about a story. And the story is irresistible. Successful surgeon's father is a hit-and-run driver with a hidden past. Identity change, murdered woman, abandoned child. It's everything the tabloids live for. By the next morning, the New York Post has printed the story. It's on the front page, below the fold, but still visible. Surgeon's secret: doctor's father hid hit and run past for 35 years. The story includes interviews with someone who worked in the Toronto Police Department in 1988. There's mention of Elena Kozlov's parents, who are quoted as saying they've spent decades waiting for justice. There's a photograph of Richard Chen in his doctor's coat looking professional and trustworthy. The irony of that image, the irony of how we construct reality around photographs and appearances, is not lost on me. Richard Chen is forced to resign from New York Presbyterian Hospital within hours. The hospital is concerned about liability. They're concerned about what his presence means for their reputation. They issue a statement saying they're investigating the allegations and are committed to maintaining the highest standards of ethics and integrity. The hypocrisy of that statement, given that they apparently didn't care about the highest standards of ethics and integrity when they hired a man with a criminal past, and given that they didn't notice or care that one of their most successful surgeons was living a double life, isn't mentioned. Michael doesn't go to work. He sits in his apartment and takes calls from people who are trying to decide whether to support him or distance themselves from him. The medical board wants to talk to him. The hospital wants to know if he knew about his father's past. His colleagues want to know if he's complicit in covering it up. He's not complicit, but explaining that to people is difficult. He's the son of a criminal. That makes him suspicious in people's eyes, even though he did nothing wrong. It makes him radioactive. I'm going to tell everyone the truth, he tells me on the second day after the canceled wedding. We're sitting in his apartment in silence, not touching, not able to look at each other. I'm going to hold a press conference and explain that I didn't know about my father's past, that I just found out, that I'm as betrayed as everyone else, that I'm cooperating with authorities. That's going to be very difficult, I tell him. Everything's already difficult. At least this way I can control the narrative. At least this way people know that I didn't know. At least this way I honor what Elena deserves. Act 5, the press conference and the breaking. Michael's press conference happens on a rainy Tuesday morning in a small room at a luxury hotel in Manhattan. There are 40 reporters. There are cameras. There are lights. It's the kind of scene that used to happen to other people. Politicians, celebrities, people who'd done something scandalous and needed to address it publicly. Now it's happening to Michael. Michael stands at the podium. He's wearing a dark suit that somehow makes him look more vulnerable instead of more professional. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. He looks like a man whose entire identity has been shattered, and he's trying to piece it back together in front of 40 cameras. My name is Michael Chen, he begins. As many of you know, my father is Dr. Richard Chen. Or rather, that's the name he's been using for the past 35 years. His real name is Richard Ashton, and in 1988, he was involved in a hit-and-run accident in Toronto that resulted in the death of a woman named Elena Kozlov, who was 8 months pregnant. The room goes quiet. This is what the reporters came to hear, but they didn't expect it to come so directly. They didn't expect him to name her, to make her real. Elena Kozlov was a violinist, Michael continues. She was 24 years old. She was going to go to Juilliard in the fall. She had parents who loved her. She had a boyfriend who loved her. She had a life that should have been extraordinary. And my father took that from her. His voice cracks slightly, but he continues. The baby was delivered alive. Elena's daughter was born at 7 months gestation. But she didn't survive. She lived for 3 days in the NICU. My father's daughter. A girl who never got to be named. A girl who never got to be known. He pauses and takes a drink of water. His hand is shaking. I didn't know about this until 3 days ago. I learned about it from my fiancé, whose family has known about my father's past for 35 years and chose not to tell me. My mother didn't know about it. My sister didn't know about it. Only my fiancé's family and apparently a handful of people in my father's past knew the truth. He looks directly at the cameras. I want to be clear, I'm not making excuses for my father. What he did was wrong. He hit a woman with his car. He drove away from the scene. He let her die without trying to help her. He built a new identity so he could avoid the consequences of his actions. That was cowardly. That was criminal. That was wrong. And I'm cooperating fully with authorities investigating his case. But I also want to be clear, I'm not my father. I don't approve of what he did. I'm not complicit in covering it up. I was an innocent party in this, just like everyone else who didn't know the truth. But being innocent doesn't absolve me of responsibility. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Elena Kozlov's death means something. I'm going to make sure justice is served. A reporter shouts, "Did your father ever discuss the accident with you?" No, never. He spent my entire life preaching about ethics and integrity and doing the right thing. He was a pediatric surgeon who helped children survive life-threatening conditions. He was my father. I respected him, and all the while, he was living a lie. Another reporter. What will you do now? I'm going to take a leave of absence from my position at New York Presbyterian. I'm going to cooperate fully with any investigation into my father's past. I'm going to support the family of Elena Kozlov, the woman my father killed. I'm going to help my father face the legal consequences of his actions, even though it will destroy everything I've worked for. And I'm going to rebuild my life on a foundation of truth instead of the lies that my father built his life on. Another reporter, this one with a crueler edge. Do you regret marrying your fiancé? Michael pauses. He looks at me in the back of the room. Our eyes meet, and I see everything in that look. Love, betrayal, heartbreak, resilience, the beginning of something new built on the ashes of something destroyed. I regret that we had to go through this. I regret that she had to be the one to tell me about my father's crimes. I regret that my wedding day became the day my world fell apart. But I don't regret loving her. I don't regret that she had the courage to tell the truth even though it cost her everything. The press conference lasts for 90 minutes. By the end, Michael looks like he's aged a decade. He's answered 40 questions. He's told the truth as completely as he can tell it. He's admitted that his father is a criminal. He's admitted that he didn't know. He's admitted that his entire life is a lie. What he hasn't said, but what everyone understands, is that everything has changed. Michael's father will face criminal charges in Canada. He will likely do time. Michael's mother is filing for divorce. Michael's sister is in therapy trying to process the fact that the man she's known her entire life is a fraud. Michael has taken a leave of absence from his position. Michael will never be able to practice medicine again without carrying the weight of his father's crimes. And Michael is standing in the middle of it all, trying to figure out who he is when the foundation of his identity has been revealed to be a lie. Act 6. The Sister and the Stranger. Jessica Chen meets the family 6 weeks after the canceled wedding. Not at a wedding venue with flowers and white tablecloths. Not in a beautiful space designed for celebration. But at a small Italian restaurant in Boston, on neutral ground. in a corner booth where no one can see us clearly. Jessica is 54 years old, though she looks younger. She's a therapist specializing in family trauma and inherited pain, which makes sense because people who've survived betrayal often develop the skills to help others survive it too. She has Michael's eyes, the same dark brown, the same direct gaze. She has Richard's mouth, though Richard doesn't realize this because he's never really looked at his daughter's face. Michael is here. Catherine, Michael's mother, is here, sitting as far away from Richard as possible. My parents are here because they feel obligated to apologize to Jessica for their role in covering up the hit and run. I'm here because Michael asked me to be here, even though we haven't talked about the wedding. We haven't talked about us. We've just been existing in a space of uncertainty, waiting to see how the pieces settle. Richard is here too. He looks smaller than he did before. His expensive suit hangs loosely on his body. He looks like a man who's been hollowed out from the inside. "Thank you for meeting us," Catherine says, and the formality of it seems absurd until you realize it's the only appropriate response to having never met your husband's biological daughter until she shows up demanding to know why he killed her mother. "Thank you for meeting me," Jessica says. She's not angry. I can hear it in her voice. She's somehow moved past anger to something harder, clarity. It would have been easier to pretend I don't exist. Most of my family chose to do exactly that for 45 years. Most people do when there's an inconvenient truth. My father stands. He looks small and old and diminished. This is not the man who built his career on following rules. This is a man who's realized that some rules were built on lies. "I'm Thomas Mackenzie, Sarah's father. I want to apologize for my role in helping your father disappear. I was young and I made a cowardly decision, and I've regretted it every single day since. I helped cover up a murder. There's no apology adequate to that." "You helped him murder my mother," Jessica says flatly. No anger, just statement of fact. "You helped him avoid accountability for taking someone's life. You didn't just help him make a mistake. You helped him cover up a crime. You helped him escape justice. And you let Elena Kozlov's parents suffer without answers for 35 years. "I know," my father says. He sits down. He looks very small in that chair. I can't excuse it. I can only say that I've spent the last 35 years trying to be a better man, even though that doesn't change what I did. It doesn't bring your mother back. It doesn't give you the father you should have had." "No, it doesn't," Jessica agrees. But there's something in her voice that's shifted. Not forgiveness, but maybe eventually the possibility of forgiveness. The dinner is awkward and painful and necessary. Jessica tells the story of growing up knowing she was adopted but not knowing why. She tells the story of building a career as a therapist, specifically because she was trying to understand why her biological parent abandoned her. She tells the story of getting a DNA test at age 51, expecting to find biological cousins, and instead finding her biological father very much alive, very much a successful surgeon in New York, very much a man living a comfortable life built on a woman's grave. "I was angry," she says. "Furious, actually. I contacted him, not expecting him to respond. But he did. He called me back within an hour. He cried. He told me everything. He told me about the accident, and about your mother, and about me, about his daughter who was born and died, without him ever meeting her." Michael doesn't speak. He's staring at his plate of untouched pasta. I watch him try to absorb the fact that he has a sister. that his father was capable of creating life and then abandoning it, that there's an entire branch of his family tree that was hidden from him his entire life. Do you forgive him? I ask. It's not a question I have any right to ask, but I need to know if forgiveness is possible here, if redemption is possible, if we can ever truly repair the damage we do in our worst moments. Forgiveness requires the person to have not done the wrong thing, Jessica says. She's a therapist. She understands the psychology of guilt and shame. She understands that forgiveness is a word that gets thrown around too easily by people who haven't experienced true betrayal. What your father did was kill someone and run away from the consequences. Forgiveness isn't going to change that, but I can accept that he's trying to make amends now. I can accept that he's finally facing the truth. That's enough. It has to be enough. Richard speaks for the first time since Jessica arrived. His voice is barely audible. "I'm so sorry," he says to Jessica. His eyes are fixed on her face like he's trying to memorize it, like he's trying to see his daughter in her features and failing because he's never really looked at her before. "I'm sorry that I wasn't there for your birth. I'm sorry that I let you grow up believing that I abandoned you, when the truth is, I didn't even know you existed. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry that I killed your mother. I'm sorry that I let her die alone. I'm sorry that I spent 35 years hiding instead of facing what I did." Jessica looks at him directly. There's no warmth in her eyes, but there's also no hatred. There's just the clear-eyed gaze of a woman who spent her entire career helping people understand their own pain. "I'm a therapist, so I understand the psychology of guilt and shame," she says. "I understand that you've been carrying this weight for a long time. I understand that you've probably replayed that night 1,000 times. But understanding that doesn't change what happened. Elena Kozlov is still dead. My sister, the sister I never got to meet, is still dead. You running away and changing your identity didn't erase that. It just postponed the reckoning." "I know," Richard says quietly. Jessica continues. "What I've learned in my career is that redemption isn't about forgiveness. It's about accountability. It's about facing what you've done and spending the rest of your life making it right. The question isn't whether I forgive you. The question is whether you're willing to live with what you've done for the rest of your life." "I am," Richard says. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes." "Then we'll see," Jessica says. "We'll see if you're actually willing to spend your life making it right, or if you're just saying that because you've been caught and you're afraid." "What will happen now?" my mother asks. She's trying to be practical, trying to move the conversation toward resolution. "Will there be legal consequences?" "The statute of limitations on hit and run in Canada is complicated," Michael says. He's been studying the law, trying to understand the mechanics of justice. But yes, Richard has agreed to turn himself in to Canadian authorities. He's agreed to cooperate fully with any investigation. He's agreed to testify about what happened. Richard nods. "I'm going to plead guilty. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to try to reduce my sentence. I'm going to accept whatever punishment the court decides is appropriate." "That's one step," Jessica says. "But Richard, you killed a woman and abandoned your daughter. No prison sentence is going to be enough. No amount of money is going to be enough. The only thing that might be enough is if you spend the rest of your life understanding what you've done and why you did it, and then spending the next 40 years trying to make sure no one else does what you did." Richard nods. He understands. I can see it in his eyes. He understands that his redemption if it's possible at all, will be incomplete. That he'll spend the rest of his life trying to undo something that can never be undone. Act 7. The Father's Journey. My father doesn't stay at the restaurant. He leaves early, saying he needs to go back to the guest house where he's been living. But he doesn't actually go to the guest house. He goes to a bar in downtown Boston and orders a whiskey. He's been doing this a lot lately. Going to bars, ordering whiskey, sitting alone and trying to understand how the man he thought he was became the man he actually is. He's been seeing a therapist 3 times a week, Dr. Reeves, a woman in her 60s who specializes in guilt and shame and the way they burrow into a person's psyche and never leave. She's told him that what he did, helping Richard hide, was an act of moral cowardice. That it doesn't matter that he was young, that it doesn't matter that Richard was his friend, that there are some things you don't do for friendship. Why did you help him? Dr. Reeves asked him in their first session. Because I was young and stupid, and I believed in second chances, my father said. That's not a reason. That's an excuse. Why did you actually help him? My father sat in silence for a long time. Because I was afraid, he finally said. Because if I turned him in, I would have to live with the knowledge that I'd destroyed my best friend. Because helping him meant I could tell myself that I was a good person, that I was loyal, that I was worthy of being loved. And now I know that I'm not any of those things. I'm a man who chose his friendship with Richard over the life of a woman. I'm a man who chose his comfort over justice. I'm a man who spent 35 years lying to his daughter about who he is. My father starts writing letters to Elena Kozlov's parents, expressing his remorse. Letters he never sends, but that he writes anyway, trying to explain himself, trying to make them understand why he did what he did, knowing that no explanation will ever be adequate. He also starts volunteering at a legal aid clinic. He does accounting for people who can't afford it. He helps immigrants with their taxes. He helps homeless people navigate the financial system. It's not redemption. Nothing could be redemption, but it's something. At home, things with his wife are complicated. They've been married for 38 years. They've built a life together. But that life was built on a lie, and now they're trying to figure out if there's anything solid underneath. Why didn't you tell me? My mother asks him during one of their counseling sessions. The therapist, a different one for couples, is waiting for an answer. Because I was ashamed, my father says. Because I knew what I'd done was wrong, and I didn't want you to know that I was capable of doing something so wrong. I wanted to be the man you thought I was, and by not telling you, I could keep pretending. But that's exactly what you accused Richard of doing, my mother says. Keeping a lie alive by not telling anyone, and you did the same thing to us, to Sarah. I know. And now our marriage is based on the fact that I'm married to someone who's been lying to me for 38 years. I know. They go through the divorce process slowly. They're both trying to do it right, trying to be kind to each other, trying to understand how the life they built together came to this. It takes a year. By the end, they both feel like they've aged 50 years. My father buys a small apartment in the city. He lives alone. He goes to therapy 3 times a week. He volunteers at the legal aid clinic 4 days a week. He sees Sarah and Michael every month. He's trying to rebuild his life on a foundation of truth. He also reaches out to Elena Kozlov's parents. It takes 3 letters before they agree to meet him. When they finally do, it's in a coffee shop in Montreal. They're in their 80s now. Their daughter would be 54 if she were alive. I can't apologize adequately for what I did, my father tells them. I can't make it right. Nothing can make it right. But I wanted you to know that I've spent the last year trying to understand what I've done and why. I wanted you to know that I was wrong, that I'm sorry, that I should have turned him in immediately. Elena's mother cries. Elena's father doesn't say anything. He just looks at my father with eyes that have been grieving for 35 years. You can't fix this, Elena's father finally says. You can spend the rest of your life trying to fix it, and you still won't fix it. My daughter is dead. My granddaughter is dead. That's the only fact that matters. I know, my father says, but he keeps trying anyway. Because that's what people do when they finally understand what they've done. They keep trying. They keep failing. But they keep trying. By the end of the first year, my father has learned something important. Redemption isn't about erasing your past. It's about living differently with it. It's about understanding that you can't undo what you've done. But you can spend the rest of your life making sure you never do it again. He's also learned that being a good person isn't about being perfect. It's about failing and then trying to do better. And failing again, but still trying. Act 8, the sister and the brother. Jessica and Michael start getting together once a month. They go to coffee. They go to movies. They talk about their father and what it means to be his children. One biological, one by blood, one by shared trauma. Do you hate him? Jessica asks Michael during one of their coffee dates. They're sitting in a small cafe in Brooklyn, the same neighborhood where Michael's apartment is, the same neighborhood where Sarah and Michael have been rebuilding their relationship from the ashes. Sometimes, Michael says, sometimes I think about all the lies he told me and I feel this rage that's so powerful it scares me. And then sometimes I think about how much pain he must have been in to spend 35 years hiding, and I feel nothing but sadness. Is that forgiveness? I don't think so. I think it's just complexity. He's not just a criminal. He's also the man who held me when I was sick as a kid. He's the man who taught me how to ride a bike. He's the man who inspired me to become a doctor. He's also the man who killed a woman and abandoned you. All of those things are true at the same time. Jessica nods. She understands this. She spent her career helping people understand that the people we love are never simple. That we can love someone and hate what they've done at the same time. I think I might forgive him, she says. Not because what he did is forgivable, but because I can't spend the rest of my life in a state of rage. I have to find a way to live with what he did and still be able to breathe. That sounds like wisdom, Michael says. No, Jessica says. That sounds like survival. And sometimes survival is all we get. They start a foundation together, the Elena Kozlov Memorial Fund. They use money that Richard has donated from the sale of his house. The foundation gives grants to young musicians who remind the selection committee of Elena's potential. They've already supported 3 young violinists, and they plan to keep going. Do you think she would have been good? Jessica asks Michael during a fundraiser for the foundation. They're standing in front of a photograph of Elena Kozlov, taken by a photographer hired by the foundation. Elena is young and alive and smiling and beautiful and dead. I think she would have been extraordinary, Michael says. I think she would have performed at Carnegie Hall. I think she would have changed the world with her music. And instead she's just a memory, Jessica says. And a foundation that gives money to other young musicians. Is that enough? No, Michael says. but it's better than nothing. They hug. They're becoming friends, these two people who didn't know each other existed until they were forced together by their father's crime. They're becoming the kind of siblings who understand each other at a fundamental level, the level of inherited trauma. Act 9, the reconstruction. The wedding happens 6 months after the canceled wedding. It's not the elaborate event we'd planned. There are no 200 guests. There's no 5-course dinner. There's no orchestra or flower arrangements or the 3-tier cake from the bakery in Brooklyn that Michael's mother had selected. Instead, there are 30 people in a small garden in Central Park on a Saturday afternoon in spring. The cherry blossoms are falling like snow. The city hums around us, indifferent to our private resurrection. My parents are there, though they're not sitting together. They're getting divorced, which is painful but necessary. They're learning how to be in the same room without the weight of their shared secret crushing them. They're learning how to forgive each other for the choices they made 35 years ago. But they came anyway, for me. Because family shows up, even when everything has fallen apart. Michael's mother is there, though she's not sitting with Richard. They're going through a divorce. They've been married for 30 years. They have 2 children together. And now she's leaving him because his lies have destroyed everything she thought she knew about their life together. She's 62 years old and starting over, which is the kind of courage that doesn't make sense until you have to do it. Michael's sister Jennifer is there, along with her wife Patricia. Jennifer has been in therapy working through her anger at her father. She's learning to understand that you can love someone and hate what they've done at the same time. She's learning that family is more complicated than she thought. Jessica is there, wearing a dress she picked specifically because it was the kind of dress her mother would have liked her to wear to a wedding. She's been getting to know Michael over the past months. They're building a relationship on the foundation of shared pain and shared truth. It's different from anything either of them expected, but it's real. Michael stands at the altar and says his vows looking directly at me. And I can see in his eyes that he's learned something about what promises mean when they're built on honesty instead of the comfortable fiction of happily ever after. I promise to keep choosing honesty, he says. His voice is steady. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to never be the man my father became. I promise to live in the light instead of the shadows. I promise to build a life with you that's real and true and grounded in reality instead of lies. I promise to be the kind of person who deserves the kind of honesty you've shown me. I promise to keep holding him accountable, to never let him slip into convenient lies, to love him in all his imperfection and uncertainty. To be his partner not just in the good times, but in the hard times, when the foundation of everything seems to be shifting and cracking and breaking. When we kiss at the end of the ceremony, it feels different than I imagined it would feel. Not less real, but more real. Built on something solid instead of something that looked solid from far away, but would have crumbled under any real pressure. The reception is simple. We have dinner at a restaurant near the park. We dance to a playlist we created together over the past 6 months. We spend time with the people we love most, the people who've stayed with us through the crisis and come out the other side. Jessica dances with Michael. They're laughing about something, probably something terrible that only they would find funny given the circumstances. They look like siblings, which, in a complicated way, they are. They look like 2 people who are building a relationship on the foundation of truth instead of the lies that separated them for so long. My father dances with my mother. They're not together anymore. They're getting a divorce. but they're still learning how to be in the same room without the weight of their shared secret crushing them. They're still learning how to forgive each other for the choices they made 35 years ago. That's progress. Later that night, lying in bed in a small hotel room in Connecticut where we've decided to spend our honeymoon, I think about the 48 hours that changed everything. 48 hours between the woman I thought I was and the woman I actually am. 48 hours between the man Michael thought he was and the man he's becoming. 48 hours that turned a fairy tale into a real story. Messier, more complicated, infinitely more valuable because it's real. "Thank you," Michael says in the darkness. "For what?" "For telling me, for not taking the easy path, for insisting that we be honest with each other even though honesty cost us everything we'd planned." "We built something better," I tell him. "Something that will actually last because it's not built on lies." "Yes, we did." And in the darkness, I hear my father's voice from months ago. "Everyone's life is built on lies, Sarah. The question is whether those lies are kind or cruel." But in this moment, lying in bed next to a man I've had to get to know all over again through the worst crisis of both our lives, I'm not lying. I'm just telling the truth about the life we're building together. One honest choice at a time. Epilogue. 5 years later. Richard Chen is released from prison after serving 4 years of his sentence in Canada. He's 64 years old. His medical license has been permanently revoked. His identity has been completely deconstructed and exposed to public scrutiny. His marriage has ended. His relationship with his children is fractured and will take years, if ever, to repair. But he's finally living in the truth. He's also established a scholarship fund in Elena Kozlov's name. The money comes from what's left of his savings after the legal fees and divorce settlements. The scholarship is awarded each year to a young musician who reminds the selection committee of Elena's talent and potential. It's not redemption. Nothing could be redemption, but it's something. He also writes letters, hundreds of them, 184 letters over 5 years, to Elena's parents. They never write back. They never acknowledge the letters. But Richard keeps writing anyway, because that's what people do when they finally understand what they've done. They keep trying. They keep failing. But they keep trying. Michael and I are planning to have a baby. We've talked about what we want to teach this child about honesty and integrity and the cost of living a lie. We've talked about how we never want our child to discover that the foundation of their understanding of the world is a fabrication. We want to build something real. Jessica and Michael have built a relationship that's stronger than many biological sibling relationships. They see each other twice a month. They go to therapy together sometimes. They're learning how to be family despite, or perhaps because of, the extraordinary circumstances that brought them together. Jessica has also fallen in love with a woman named Karen, and they're talking about getting married. My father has moved into a studio apartment in the city. He goes to therapy twice a week. He's been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, which his therapist suggests may have been underlying his entire life, masked by his obsessive need to follow rules and maintain appearances. He's learning, at 67 years old, how to live authentically for the first time in his life. He's also learned to forgive himself. Not completely, but enough to breathe. Enough to sleep through the night most nights. Enough to smile at a joke without immediately feeling guilty about it. My mother has filed for divorce and gone back to school to get her master's degree in social work. She's building a new life, one not defined by her husband's choices or her father's secrets. She's also become friends with Jessica, which surprises everyone, but then makes perfect sense. They're both women who've been affected by Richard Chen's lies. They're both women rebuilding their lives on foundations of truth. Catherine, Michael's mother, is dating someone. A woman she met at a yoga class. For the first time in 30 years, she's allowing herself to be happy. She's allowing herself to imagine a life beyond the one she built with Richard. She's learning that divorce isn't failure, it's just a correction course. And Michael and I are here, in our apartment in Brooklyn, planning our future on a foundation of truth. We're planning our child's room. We're talking about what schools they might go to. We're building something real, because maybe that's the only thing that matters in the end. Not the wedding that didn't happen. Not the perfect life we thought we were going to have. But the real life we're choosing to build, together, with our eyes open, knowing exactly what we're getting into. That real life, built on honesty, forged in crisis, strengthened by the decision to face the truth no matter what it costs. That's worth more than any fairy tale could ever be.